struggle that we're running into. So we've got this fatigue, this literal fatigue going on. Why does that happen for one? Well, let me explain two different reasons why this happens. There's more that goes into it, but for length and everything, let's kind of talk about these two reasons that happens. One of them is literally because of insulin resistance, okay? So let's go with the insulin right here, because here's what happens, right? With PCOS, you've got your nice little cell right there. Okay, and with that cell, on top of the cell, you have these receptors. And the receptor's job literally is to take, we take our insulin, hold on a second. There we go. We take our insulin, a little insulin right here, and it binds to the cell right, or to the receptor right there. Well, what does that cause to happen? Okay, well, what it does is it actually takes we've got these little things inside of our cells. Let me get the right color, there we go. These little things inside of our cells that are little channels. And what happens is when the insulin binds, we move this channel up here to that cell wall. So we have these channels sitting right here. Now at this point, what can happen is we've got our little glucose molecule, and glucose kind of looks like this. Okay, glucose comes in and it can work its way into the cell, and then we can break it down, do whatever we need to, and you get energy from it. So we release energy at that point, right? Okay, so you've got your energy. Well, what happens? Okay, if you have insulin resistance, literally what tends to happen is this. Insulin comes along, it goes to bind right here, it pops out here. Now we don't have that. We don't have these receptors, so therefore we don't have energy that's being produced, and you're tired. Does that make sense? Okay, now that's the first reason, is because a lot of women with PCOS deal with insulin resistance. So what do we need to do? Well, we'll get into what we need to do in just a second. But here's the other issue. Okay, we've got another cell over here, just a regular old muscle cell. And inside the muscle cell, we have something we call our mitochondria. Now the mitochondria, think of that as your furnace, okay? This is where we burn energy, create energy. And so to create that energy, we have to burn or break down your fats and things like that, right? Well, here's something we've recently discovered with PCOS is, let's say you've got your little fat molecule, and fat tends to look like this little squiggly thing right here. And your fat molecule comes in, it gets to your cell, right? And what do we need to do? We need to bring it inside the cell. Well, that's not an issue. Sweet, we bring it in, no worries, right? But here's the next step we have to do. We need to get that inside the mitochondria. Okay, so what happens is there's a specific molecule that does this. We call it carnitine. Okay, carnitine grabs onto the fat and it literally moves it into your mitochondria. But here's what happens. Okay, with PCOS, that carnitine, and I'll put carnitine as a C right here. Okay, carnitine is lacking. We have a deficiency in carnitine. So now fat comes into the cell. It's ready to go into the mitochondria. Comes in right here and goes, nope, we're not going to do that. Now, think for a second, right? If you had a house, okay, you got your little house right here, okay, all this. Inside the house, you had a little fireplace over here. And so you bring all of this wood, all right? You've got wood sitting out here ready to be used. You want to put that into your fireplace, right? And you bring it in, you get into the house, and you just pile it on. Okay, we start piling that wood on, right? But we don't actually get it into the fireplace. Well, what's going to eventually happen? Well, you're going to get frustrated with all that wood inside your house, and you're like, well, it's not going to the fireplace. I can't get it in there, so I'm going to go store it back out here, right? I'm going to put it back outside. Well, our body does the exact same thing. It takes that fat's all stored in here now. It's just sitting in here, not being used, and so our body goes, well, let's send it back out here to our fat cells. Let's store that again, okay? Then it comes back out here. We store it again inside of our fat cells. You had the ability to break it down, right? You were able to break it down and get it to your muscle, but you couldn't use it. And so we shipped it back. Now, because you can't use it, you're not creating, remember our little thing we create in here, you're not creating your energy, right? And if you're not creating energy, you're tired. Does that make sense? So what do most people say? Most people go to you and they say, you need to eat less. Well, you eat less, and what does that do? Now you have less fuel to make your energy, and you're even more tired, right? Or you're told to work harder. You need to exercise harder. Well, now here you go and exercise harder. Great, wonderful. Anyways, you start pushing harder and harder and harder, and it's just not working for you, right? You're struggling with that. You're struggling to see some success. So we need to make sure that you can start to use your carbohydrates. By how do we do that? How do we get you to use your carbohydrates? Well, we make your body more sensitive right here so that you don't have to use as much insulin, right? Because one thing insulin does also is it also makes it easier to store fat. We don't want that, right? So we want to make it so that we can actually get this inside the cell and use it, correct? Or that we are, and then also along with that is that we're getting the fat inside our mitochondria, we can create that energy.